Okay. Dear friends of the Words of the New on Beijing, Young Business Leaders Beijing, my name is Constantin, and today we have another expert interview here in our project China Bridge. And today I have as a guest Fernando Colaco. Hello,
Hey.
Fernando.
Hey.
Great to have you here. I'd like to give you a short introduction about Fernando. He is the CEO and lead developer at Colaco Technology, a tech and creative agency in Beijing. I'm very happy to be here today at your office.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I see you have a lot of technology lying around.
Yeah, sometimes quite messy.
How did 2023 start for you?
It was completely different from the last 3 years. You can feel already things moving ahead. Like, including several clients had projects like standing by for the last 2 years at least. And now everyone decided to go ahead with those. So that's good, of course. I was expecting some bump, but not all at the same time.
Right.
So we had to adjust, but that's good news anyway. The market is getting back to normal. If not, in some points I find it better than even before COVID. So nothing to complain about in terms of demand.
Yeah. You feel that companies were already waiting for China to open?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies had kind of one foot behind, just waiting. Let's wait until things get kind of back to normal. Even if they were not too much out of normal during the first few months of the pandemic. But well, the people were waiting for more safety in terms of controls and lockdowns and so on. As soon as things open, at least in our market, in our audience, we found a huge difference from mid-January mostly, and now it's getting even crazier. So it's moving fast.
So today, we want to talk more about metaverse, VR, and AR development in China. Do you have any cool projects running? What keeps you awake at night? What's very exciting about this current situation?
We start to see some traction on companies interested on these technologies. There was already before, but mostly on the entertainment side, not really on the commercial side and business. But you see more so in the industrial field, mostly on training, but also again on the sales part. There's a lot of projects for preparing stuff for trade shows, for example, like demo booths. And sometimes it's companies that don't have anything related to AR or VR on their products, but it's a way to show their product or show some kind of experience. There's also some on the medical field, not just for like attendance, but like treatment even. So that's kind of growing slowly.
Is it AR? I've seen
both VR and AR.
Yeah, I've seen recently doctors, surgeons, they already use AR glasses to do spine surgery.
No. It's not on that field, on that kind of, because for that, most clients are still reticent in going ahead because responsibility, because that needs a lot more precision.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's more on the presence, so doctor presence. There's already some projects going on, and it's in treatment, mostly for on the mental form of things, like very soft treatment. It's not like how to say, because it's complicated, especially VR. You don't want people to feel scared or because it's too much getting out of the reality and getting into a different
Wow.
And especially if it's on treatment of mental diseases, and you need kind of a soft transition from the real environment into the VR one. That's one of the things we're working on.
I've recently tried a kind of meditation app in VR, and what I found was interesting is it kind of tracked where you look at, and then it tracks your breath, probably through the sound.
Through the sound, probably.
And then you have a visualization.
Oh, so you have a visualization of.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's immersive.
Yeah.
That's using not just the optics, not just the movement, That's a brilliant way of using the. We start to see more ways to use, rather than just the typical gaming cliches that are not new anyway. VR for gaming, it's kind of where the market moved more during these years. But now it's a time we start to see other applications in the industrial field, in the medical field, and even you see some, I call it still experiments in the shopping field, so sales.
Yeah.
Aside from the what I told we already work, which is more like events and it's a showcase of the product, but in a trade show environment or something like that. But we start to see even in China some of the big guys doing like trying with the 3D, AR, VR on sales.
Okay. You mean manufacturing companies, or do you mean
No, business to consumer stuff.
so like clothes, for example?
Yeah.
Okay. So how does it work? Do they use mirrors where they can see themselves as an avatar, or?
That's more augmented reality without the devices. So it's like it does recognition and then just superimposes the clothes or the glasses or that is not even new, but now it's getting more refined and more used by the companies, taken more seriously. So it's switching from just novelty experiments. I'm not a huge fan of that because sometimes it's too much. It's a little bit over the edge but again, it adds to the experience. So it's interesting to see all these things changing and moving these days.
You've probably tried like foreign metaverse experiences, like from Meta. But in China, what I've seen so far is they're trying to not totally rebuild the actual world, but they try to integrate the real world with further functionality. So more, I feel they are way much more.
It's more augmenting than replicating.
Yeah, so
which
that's
is
what I
actually
see.
easier and more practical. Because you don't have the problems of the one-to-one so they're adding functionality with the technology rather than trying to and that I actually like, rather than trying to make to replicate the real world for no reason and then adding on top of that. I think it's more interesting actually. Yeah, but they are going in a different direction.
You feel so too? And what do you think are the main drivers for doing so? Like, why don't they just rebuild their own metaverses, like several metaverses? Like Baidu definitely is working on something. They all have the resources to do that. But why are they probably more trying to integrate the metaverse into the real world?
Again, either they are just trying to do something different, or it's just because we already saw even Facebook, for example, they have they're trying to replicate the office in office environments. They're trying to basically redo the like what we had like Second Life, but now actually into VR, and that didn't went very well so far. Maybe because I don't know, because instead of utility, it's more recreational than even the office one. And they are trying to do that for things that are actually more practical to just do a phone call or a video call, and it might be cumbersome to go into the VR thing. And in China, I see it more like adding functionality to rather than replicating and then adding. They're trying to do their own thing. So things will change a lot in the incoming few years. Well, we are in China, like every month things will change. But it's interesting to see how those things are unfolding.
Right. Okay. In China, we have this challenge that we cannot use cryptocurrency, right, for payments, like within those metaverses. What do you see? How are companies going to handle this challenge? Are they just going to use the digital yuan to make more payments?
China is doing their own in terms of currency. They are doing their own, probably to not go out of control with all the scams like we start seeing on the cryptocurrency everywhere. And there's a lot of rug pulls and all kinds of stuff going on. And they will always want to have So on the financial side of things, they want to have control. But I see most of the utility of blockchain in general. It's not just about the coins and the money and even the NFTs. And sure, every company and startup is using Web 3.0 and everything is NFTs, everything is blockchain, even when it's not. It works for pulling investors, it works for maybe selling to the client. But there's actually a small itch I have with using the buzzwords out of context. And that confuses the clients too, because then what happens is the client arrives and he wants an app. Oh, but I want Web 3.0 and NFTs and blockchain. Then you have to explain, well, that doesn't apply to, that doesn't give any benefit to your project. But they were sold so much, no, this has to have blockchain or, yeah, but blockchain, again, blockchain is not new. The decentralized web is kind of trying to be pushed now. And it will be useful for many things, contracts and everything on that domain. Here for currency, it won't be used probably, aside from the official one. But all the crypto coins and whatever, that's not going to happen here.
Yeah,
We already saw that.
I see. But do you think that the strict regulations, for example, on such payments, may slow down the development of metaverse-related applications in China compared to the West?
They are not directly connected. And Bitcoin itself and the big ones, the day they will actually be, how to say, this is my opinion, but the day they will actually be taken more serious is the day there's some more regulation on it, more standardized. So what China is trying to do already with the digital renminbi, because now it has its own audience, but the way it is now, it can be taken as a, well, again, like China is doing with making it official, making it regulated, because otherwise you still have to be a specialist in cryptocurrency to actually use it without being afraid of scams and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay. Where do your clients come mostly from? Like for abroad?
It's 50-50. It's different markets, it's different audiences, but both for technology and for the creative stuff, and the projects we like most, which is a mix of both, I would say. But during the pandemic, most of the clients were from overseas. Now the market here is moving faster, but we always have a split. I'd say projects from overseas usually move faster on the decision what technologies to use, what to do. Here it's a little bit more slow, but it's changing now, and you're feeling it, especially now since January. Yeah.
Why is it slower?
I don't know.
We expect Chinese companies to make decisions faster and know
they
what
do
they
transitions faster. That's a bit what I said. It's just like they took longer to decide, but now they want to move. So they take longer to start, but then they pile on features and everything, and they move faster after, and they switch and change technologies faster also. So if something new comes, it takes longer to be adopted overseas, or it's more like they wait until the technology is kind of stable and solid. Here there's more experimental stuff. And things move faster here, so it makes sense.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, we are in the center of technological development, acceleration. How do you see people, like say between 16 to 40, adapting to this technological change, and how does it apply to the daily lives? Like if companies decide to use AR applications or create VR applications, does it really impact a lot of people here in China already, or is it just a small portion of
It's different markets actually. So again, in the recreational gaming and whatever, the young generation will get it really fast. The other generations, the practical cases are more in the business field for now, not in the consumer side that much yet, at least yet. So it will take a while for it to become a consumer thing, not just because equipment is not that cheap yet. And there's more applications for the, as I said, medical, industrial, or even many other fields, but that will be more on the sales and the marketing domain, and mostly in events because you need the equipment. So the only way around that is using your phone, but that's not kind of a great experience. It's basically just 360. You can do VR, but it's very limited. And what we gain now from the new equipment, and as the prices go down, and there's a lot of new equipment popping out in China, both for VR and AR. What we get from that is that the prices go down and the adoption of the technology will get better, but it will still take a while, but we are in the right time now because we are starting to experiment and pushing the limits what can be done. Clients are curious enough to jump on those projects because before it was very difficult. And the budgets now are easier to predict because the equipment is getting kind of stabilized. You don't need to buy $1 million headset like many years ago. Not really, but it's a curve, and it will be very fast. We already know how things move in here.
So you have scale.
And you already see a lot of competition on VR headsets and so on, which is essential because like the Facebook one, it's not very practical here. But it's going to be an interesting series of 2 or 3 years. And especially these next 2 years, things will move fast. We already know how it happens here. Some things will be adopted on the other side in the West later. Some things will be adopted there first, even if the equipment comes from here. You start to see Chinese hardware like a Pico and all those being adopted in the West too.
Yeah,
so
true.
Mostly because of cost. And now the gap between price and quality, it's balanced.
Do you also think that China is going to become a hardware leader, like a leader in the production of hardware in the next 10 years?
This kind of hardware,
Yeah.
yes, if it's not already.
Yeah.
Now there's still some dependencies between both sides, but China is not going to lag behind, and they will move fast if they need to. And if there's a market and if it's moving, they will jump ahead on that for sure.
Yeah. You just mentioned that, especially in the corporate world, such applications are used. I'm thinking, is it because they don't expect the single user, like the consumer in the shopping mall, to understand this technology quickly and get a value from it?
It's more the adoption. Again, we have the obstacle of the equipment not being cheap. Now, so a few years ago, mobile phone was something not that common. In China, it was faster, the adoption. But so we saw the same with smartphones, for example. And all of a sudden, everyone has a computer in their pocket, and that changes every year how much it can do, how far it can go. Now there's basically no limits what people can do with their phones. And China jumped very quickly on that, for example. Actually, technology in China started more on the phone than people use the computer for the internet, for example.
True.
It's a huge difference, and you are here too for a long time. You know the difference. Everything on the phone, even email, is not a huge thing here, because there was not that transition from computer to phone.
Yeah.
It was basically the other way around, and some people didn't even transition to computer because they don't need it. So when these things start getting cheaper and more accessible to everyone, that's when the boost will happen. Doesn't need to be headsets, even just like what Google tried a few years ago, the Google Glass. We will start to see simpler equipment. Maybe the experience is slightly more limited, but it's more about the usage, what you can do with it. Because then that drives developers to do more things and push it to clients if the client can get some gain from that, can benefit from that, and their clients can benefit from that. So there's a responsibility on the side of the developers and the providers, and that will be much easier when the equipment is more accessible in terms of costs. That's why now you see it most used on companies that have the budget to implement that on your team, across their offices, across their factories, across their hospitals, because that's a bigger budget for implementation. Because when the adoption of the equipment by the consumers, it's more the entry point is more it's easier. Then you'll start to see a boom of consumer VR. Now there's already AR because phones can already do that, but it's a different kind of AR. It's not headset VR. It's not headset AR. It's more using the camera and. But that you already see for a while. But things are getting more interesting these days. Again, it's there's also the curve of what hardware can do.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Recently, I downloaded a Chinese app, and it is an AR app which allows you to choose to search, for example, for supermarkets or cinemas. And you click on it, and it shows you an AR visualization, basically on top of the real environment.
So you use the camera.
Navigates you.
Yeah.
It navigates you to that place, which I think is interesting. I'm just wondering, does it really create enough value for people later to buy glasses to have such an experience?
Yeah, for now, it's on the phone. I don't know. Again, those technologies, it's a hit or miss because we don't know how it's going to work. Either it goes crazy and everyone adopts it, or it's a half-half situation, or everyone drops it. Like when Google Glass started, it was a risk. But I think the timing was not the best one also.
It was very early.
Now things are moving in a different pace. But for example, what you said is with the phone, we're doing something similar because everyone always gets lost when coming to the office. So once they are in the area, which gate they get into, and to get to the courtyard, they will be guided in real time. And that will be web AR. So it will be on the website. If the website detects they are close enough to the office, it gives them the directions that way rather than the map and whatever.
You don't need to download an app, you just open a website.
No, it's on the web. Because for these kinds of things, you don't want people to wait.
Exactly.
So web AR already can do a lot, even VR. But people are not walking with a headset. And you don't want them bumping into the garbage, trash cans and whatever. But it's, again, things move too fast now. It's a matter of the clients being interested in taking some risks and jumping to new technologies because some don't. They wait until someone else does it and then they want to, I want to do that. But that's the projects we usually don't want to do because it's already done. We like to do experimental stuff too. And if you already did it for another client, we don't do direct competition between clients. So it's tricky. But we always try to push new technology.
But if you have clients who are slightly more conservative, so they're not really experimental,
it's hard to push any kind of that stuff to them.
Yeah, but they still live in the old world where they think they don't need such type of technology, and maybe look back in 5 years and see maybe
when it's already old.
Exactly.
That happens.
How can these companies participate in this changing environment, especially in China, which probably moves slightly faster than, say, Europe?
Again, it's part of the role of companies like ours, because you also have to educate the clients what they can do, because sometimes they don't know yet what they can do, or sometimes they don't know what they want, and we focus more on what goal they have. And sure, if VR or AR or blockchain is convenient to them, I will try to. It's not try to push it, try to sell it, to let them understand why they should do it. And some companies don't bother with that, and they actually expect the client to brief them on, we want to use this and that, and they would just say yes, even if they are not going to do it. But I feel there's, especially here in the West, they already know more or less which direction they want to go. But here it's very common we still need to guide the client on what they should use, what direction they should go, and how to achieve the goals they intend. And sometimes technology is part of it. And what we do here, we sell solutions. Doesn't matter if it's the creative side or the tech side that is going to solve their problems. or optimize their sales. But most times this technology is kind of the larger part of the project.
Okay, interesting.
Software and hardware.
Yeah. So when we talk about the B2C sales channels, we have Taobao, Jingdong, Tmall, and all these. And there's a feature of Tmall, I believe, which allows you to place 3D models into your house. I did it recently. I tried it. They sell a tent. I tried to place a tent in my house. It didn't really work out. It was flying somewhere in the middle of the room.
Again, the technology is still in
Still adjusting. And obviously the number of
IKEA did that before, for example.
Yeah, I know. I was wondering, what do you suggest a company to use as a channel to use this type of technology to sell to their end customer?
Yeah, again, that is a practical and useful case. So if you're buying something, not for everything, because otherwise it's overkill, but for something for your house or something that you need to know the size. If I want to put some table there, I want to see if it fits, and that's very feasible to do these days. But not for everything. You don't want to be doing your grocery shopping. You don't need to see your dishwasher detergent and your toilet paper in 3D.
Let's see how that rolls. Yeah.
That's overkill. But for things you want to see the size, or for example, for the post office, you have something you need to send and you want to know what size of box, so it would kind of impose the sizes of boxes they have over your product, so you see if it fits. Like, that's practical, that's useful. But if you go into the novelty direction and make it overkill, that will not help the technology and that will not help the consumer. It will just be too much.
Yeah.
It would be cumbersome on top of the normal experience. It's better and everyone knows how to order online and so on. But they should have that as an extra to visualize things that they need to be aware of the size, or even things that you just want to see. That different photos can solve it also. So again, it's not going too far, not overuse it, because otherwise it doesn't add to the experience and it doesn't have any benefits for the end user, the client. Yeah.
What do you see as being the biggest challenge for companies who want to start implementing such technology? Whatever, let it be VR, let it be AR. What is the challenge? Is it the lack of knowledge? Is it that they have no budget for it yet because they haven't spent on it in the past and it's not in their financial planning?
That's a very important question. And for companies like ours, we feel that pain because clients are not aware of the time it takes to properly do it. You can do something really crappy and throw it there, or just reuse something, but do it in a really not professional way and save time. But it's not the kind of things you want to cut corners. You want to implement it well, but it's mostly because it's not cheap sometimes, depending on the scale of the project. There's all kinds of projects, but sometimes clients get a bit shocked with the costs, what it takes to implement, and then they backpedal on that, because it's not the same as building a website. It's not the same of doing a logo, but as long as you let the client understand they don't need to understand the technology and the technical aspects, but they need to understand the amount of work involved, and they need to understand if you want to do it well, if you want quality, and not just a really bad experience for the user, because that's going to have the opposite effect of what they want. Or if it's for industrial training, you want precision, you don't want just a chabadoo kind of experience, even in terms of safety, and so you need to do it properly. And now budget is usually a problem, and one of the main reasons projects don't happen, it's budget. Second is expectations, because it's not a logo and it's not done in 1 week. It involves a lot more than that. So but that happens with any new technology. I remember, not in this company, I was a freelancer at the time when mobile apps started. The same happened, and people would think it's just the same as doing a website. So then they have the budget shock, and either they take a long time to decide, or they just don't go ahead and wait. And then when the market is more solid and they are aware, okay, what other people are paying for it, that makes more sense. But now if people ask to do something, there's not that many models of things that were already done. But in China, overseas also, but in China, we find actually more clients that want to go in and do some experimental stuff. So they take the risk. Not just Chinese companies, but also foreign companies nested in China. That is happening more. Some of them were interested during the pandemic, but it was kind of holding. I cannot give details on that one because of NDA, but one of the projects is highly experimental, and they just decided to go ahead. Let's do it now. Yeah, and it will have that kind of things that the timeline might be 1 month or two, depending on the results and how long it takes to get to where we want to get. But clients are jumping into experimental technology now.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. Do you think that deciding for technology now may let you regret your decision in say 3-4 years because you put a lot of money into the specific technology and let's say a company built this technology on a certain platform. In 4 years a new marketing manager arrives and he has different ideas and you can scrap the whole old project.
That's a very interesting point, and that's one thing that we do. And that's one reason that it's being easier to get clients, because sometimes they get burned in other companies. That ends up being convenient for us. So especially in the not only in technology, but especially in projects involving technology, we always try to go one step ahead and make it future proof from the beginning and scalable from the beginning. So when the technology changes or evolves, you don't need to reinvent the wheel and do the same project all over again. So it needs to be able, so the software part needs to be already considering that hardware will change, because it will. And sometimes very fast. Sometimes when you're finishing the project, things already changed. Sometimes when you are in the middle of the project, things are already changing. So in everything involving technology, you need to think a little bit, at least, in being future proof. It will be good for you. It will be good for the client. It will be good for the consumers. For the client, because they know they can count on you. For you, good, because the client will come back. And you have to do it not in a trap way to kind of hold the client ransom hostage, like, well, when this changes, you need to come back. No, you still scale it, so if they have their own team, they can go ahead. But always think that technology will change. Especially, and it's not just the resolution will change, what you can do will change. So then you can build on top and adapt the things that change.
Okay.
That applies to AR, VR, and most things involving technology, even apps, simple apps. If you want the client to stay happy and come back when they need to expand their product or their service, you need to think from the beginning on something that they will not get stuck, and then they have to redo another app.
Right. Okay. What do you see are your challenges for this year? Like, what will be your biggest challenges?
We need to double the staff probably, because as I said, since mid-January more or less, the demand for projects that were kind of slowly boiling, some of them we saw, well, this is not going to happen. They just decided to start from the beginning of the year. We need to expand the developer department, because like 70% of the projects involve technology and development. So things are going to grow quite quick this year. Even until before summer, I already need to do a lot of changes, all because of the client demand that changed a lot. Not just on Chinese companies, we can see the Western companies coming back full staff. Well, they were kind of holding. And not just that, they are jumping into projects that they were reticent in doing it before. And now they're, okay, let's go ahead. So so that means we also need to move fast.
Interesting.
But that's good news for this year.
Definitely, and probably
There's like kind of 3 slow years for everyone,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden it's kind of compensating for all the slowdowns.
and it probably also means you need a bit more hardware for your developers to
Oh,
try
yeah.
stuff out.
This is in
planning?
constant crazy scientist lab mode all the time. We are
Yeah.
always testing new stuff before the clients arrive with the project, because we need to know what we're dealing with. So we are in the right place because we can order something and it just arrives tomorrow and
Yeah.
we can already test it.
What are you planning to buy this year, like from the Chinese producers? You mentioned Pico. We also know Real is very hot. At least it's very famous.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the best on the market, but what do
Well,
you
we are basically going to get everything as usual. Some of the things will be used once, and okay, this cannot be used for production, or but at least we have a baseline to know what's going in the right direction and not, and what can be improved. But that's kind of the way we work. We like to be ahead of the market. Some projects, the client actually arrives and we need to try something that it's still on its experimental stage, but as much as we can, not just with hardware, even with because we are not, how to say, we are kind of technology agnostic. We don't go in that, oh, we only do React, we only do Java, we only do C. We do whatever it needs to reach the project goals, whatever is more efficient for whatever project. And in hardware is the same. You don't want to get stuck with one thing and kind of push it to the client. No, this is better because that's whatever you're selling. So in hardware and software, you need to kind of be ahead of the curve if you want to be ready to best solve the problems and best find a solution. It's that simple. So in terms of hardware, China is a paradise for companies like these, because you can test things really quickly. Even when they are at prototype stage, you just contact the company and they invite you to see the equipment. When it's done, even before it's ready for production, you already know we're going to use that. And that's going to happen soon. I have to do, I didn't travel much during these 2 years, 3 years. And now everything is going to reboot all at the same time. So I have to do a tour basically in the south of the Shenzhen, for technology, of course. And there's a few prototypes that I'm going to see, mostly on the AR side. And I'm excited with that because probably some I'll be going to use it next year, but I want to know what I'm dealing with already. Yeah,
that's great. Maybe you bring some glasses. Let me try, and then
I cannot bring the prototype yet. I need to go there.
I want to see you with some different hairstyle, and my glasses.
Okay.
No hair, punk.
Like you?
So,
no hair. It's
red hair. The no hair is the easy one, I guess.
Yeah, that one is easy.
Great, Fernando. Thanks so much for your time.
No, you're welcome.
I think we got a very interesting perspective here, especially from within China, Beijing, the center of technological acceleration, I believe. I will be back in a few months and see how things developed throughout this year. If you have any questions, please leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you would like to learn more about the young business leaders in Beijing, feel free to contact us through the German Chamber website in China. Thank you very much. See you next time.